right, all right, all right. It's Friday. I'd like to welcome you to New Life Recovery Show. If I think better, I do better. We got to welcome our fearless leader, Vin McCormick. Vin, how you living?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Actually, it's afternoon. I should say it's 12 o'clock EST. And I'm grateful, Donnie. I'm grateful. We got another opportunity to bring the tragedy of mental health to our listeners, our viewers, and have wonderful guests like the ones who are going to be on today to lend their expertise, their experiences in that. So I'm great, man. I'm great. It's another day.
Yes, sir. We got a guest with us today, Maurice Good. How you doing, Maurice? Welcome to the show. Hey, Maurice, how you doing? It's gonna be one of them kind of shows, I see. Can you hear us, Maurice?
I'm great.
So, Maurice, tell us about
the
young people you deal with and what you try to teach them.
Okay, so for the last 30 years, I've been doing workforce development and training with young people who have pretty much been classified as disconnected youth. Young people with challenges, whether it be housing, whether it be incarceration, just it runs the gamut. And so basically, my purpose in life is to help them to remove some of the barriers so that they could be successful, and also I think most importantly is helping them to be able to address the trauma that they don't even know exists, but it's hindering them. And so that's been my life purpose, is just to help them to understand that process of how to heal that trauma so that they could be successful.
That's great, bro. That's great, bro, Maurice.
Tell me more.
If you don't mind, bro, Maurice, what area do you get your youth from primarily?
So I've worked with organizations that have been in partnership with corrections, the homeless population. It varies. You have and something that isn't often addressed is that there's a lot of young people that are in traditional schools who are terrified to be in schools, and so they drop out or they stop attending, and so people classify those young people as being bad kids, right? It's not that these young people are bad kids or they just drop out because for the sake of dropping out. They are terrified of the elements that are in the schools, and so therefore they stop attending schools. So that's a population that often falls through the cracks unless somebody knows what to look for and how to address it.
What do you know about incarceration, Maurice?
Well, I know more than I would like to know about incarceration. I was, I was incarcerated at the age of 19, shortly after turning 19, for possession and manufacturing of a controlled dangerous substance. I was facing 45 years without the possibility of parole because of the amount of drugs that I had. Luckily, I ended up with 7 years, and I was able to serve 3.5 on that 7 and come home and turn my life around. That began that process. And I just want to say that's really what motivated me to do the work that I've done for the last 30 years is because I knew that there was a lot of needs out there.
Y'all see why he here? And since then, you've been helping hundreds of young people, even in Sandtown, 16 to 24-year-olds, no job skills, no resume. Some of them didn't even have a suit and tie. Girls didn't have a dress. And I saw you. I saw you work with them in the mid 90s, in the middle of the crack epidemic. These young people easily could have been standing on a corner slinging, but you went to the hardest ones in the neighborhood. Tell them about Antoine.
Well, the late Congressman Cummings said something to me because he was one of my many mentors as I came out of incarceration. And Congressman Cummings said to me later in my professional development, he said, Maurice, he said, you were the type of mentor that you needed. And that's all I really wanted to be. I wanted to be that voice for young people, but not just young people. I mean, for their families as well. And speaking of the young man that you talked about, Antoine, this young man, like he was full of potential, but he also was full of anger, and because of life circumstances. And I think that's what happens is that we have so many young people who are full of potential, but they're full of anger. And so it's a matter of which one is going to win out. Is it going to be the anger or is it going to be the potential? Well, depending on who their support system is going to determine whether the anger or the potential wins out.
Okay. We're going to slide over to our other guests. And I kind of, y'all forgive me, but Marlon, before we start, can you bless this show with prayer? We want to reach our young people today. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Reverend. Thank you.
All right. So, Lord God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the purpose for today's show to reach out to impact our young men in our community. So, Lord, we just pray that the information just shared today gets to those individuals and that it becomes a blessing to them and change circumstances and situations around, and that we will continue to be change agents in the community to bring hope and bring a brighter future to our communities and to our neighborhoods. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Now, Marlon, y'all had me do a keynote down there last week.
Yes, sir.
I'm still waiting on that big fat check you promised me. But tell them about the graduation that you had, Marlon.
Yeah, so we're with Power 52. I'm the community relations manager for Power 52 Foundation. And so we train individuals to become solar panel installers. It's a 4-month program. So last week was the conclusion of one of our cohorts, our 23rd cohort. So we had our graduation there. So we had, I believe, 18 or 19 individuals graduating from our program. So that was our graduation. Yep.
Three of them were women.
Yes, 3 of them were women. Yep, three of them are women. Many of them come from low to moderate income communities and different backgrounds, social economic backgrounds. So yeah, those are our target demographics. Pretty much, we have with Power 52, we service individuals from the ages to 18 to 50. You can have a criminal background, again from low to moderate income. Just not making more than 35,000, and then we change people's lives. We have hundreds of different graduates from the program. We've been next year will be 10 years that Power 52 has been training individuals and having job placement assistance for all of our trainees and getting them hired and working. So that's what we do.
Now, don't you want to tell them what the 52 is for? Because
Yes.
I know they want to know.
Yes, everyone wants to know the 52. So 52, one of our co-founders is the legendary Ray Lewis from the Baltimore Ravens, NFL Hall of Famer. So he's one of our co-founders. So that's the 52 behind Power 52.
That's excellent.
Okay, now where are you located?
So we are located in Columbia, Maryland. That's where we're headquartered, but we service the entire state of Maryland.
Okay.
And soon we're going to be rolling out to getting out of the state of Maryland so we can get into more areas. But right now we service the entire state of Maryland. So anywhere from Maryland, you can apply.
Okay. Now, one other thing. Sunday mornings.
Yes, sir.
Are you in Columbia on Sunday mornings?
No, sir. So Sunday mornings, you can meet us in Sandtown on Calhoun Street, 1340 North Calhoun Street at McKinney's Memorial Holiness Church.
What are you doing in Sandtown on a Sunday morning?
I'm preaching most Sunday mornings at that address. So I am the pastor there at McKinney Memorial Holiness Church in Sandtown.
Oh, you certified West Side.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Look, I was just talking last night. We were on our podcast last night. I said I grew up in the county, but every week I was in West Boston. I was in Sandtown. So, yes, sir.
You certified West Side. And what do you see when you go through that neighborhood to get to your church on Sunday morning?
Oh, as you see a lot of blight, a lot of you know individuals that need stuff to do, and that's why uh, I definitely use ministry and what I work with Power 52 uh, to get change some circumstances, so we can use faith, but also take that faith and it says faith without work. So let's get to working. So let's get you into a program like Power 52 to change your circumstances, and you can get to action and just change your not only your circumstances but your family and everything. We've seen so many powerful different stories of how people's lives can just change with having that faith and then putting your faith to action. So yes.
Okay. So I want to introduce you briefly to our fearless leader here at New Life Recovery. And this is a mental health show. I think you missed the theme. Our theme is, if I think better, I can do better. So then
Yes.
why don't you tell them about the significance of this show?
So, thank you for coming on, Pastor Marlon, as well as you also, Mr. Burris. I see you up there. And we heard from Brother Maurice earlier. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to come and be a part of this new podcast, the New Life Recovery Show, with an emphasis on the state of mental health in Baltimore and beyond. And so we have a mental health program in Baltimore, centered in Baltimore. I stopped saying, and I personally don't use the term a drug program. We use that term so much in Baltimore and outside of Baltimore. To me, it's a menial and minimizing term, because substance abuse is nothing more than a small item or occurrence in a broader thing called mental health, right? That's just one aspect of it. So we have a mental health program that addresses all areas of mental health, whether it's substance abuse, the coke, the dope, the alcohol, and the weed, right? Gambling as well, right? Because gambling, and Donnie and I have been talking about this last week or so. Gambling, especially in Baltimore, because we have people who have spent a lot of time and money at Live and at the Horseshoe, and on their phone at work and at home on the app, the new sports betting app that Kevin Hart is promoting, Jamie Foxx is promoting. That is cute, but it's killing families, right? It's killing families. So that's what we do here at New Life Recovery Center. We're centered in Baltimore. We have 4 offices in Baltimore City. We're downtown. We're also in West Baltimore on Pratt Street, and Fremont in Sandtown. Fremont and Landvale, as a matter of fact, Pastor.
Well, technically that's Harlem Park, but we'll let it slide.
Yeah. For the purpose of our purposes, let it slide.
Let it slide.
We recently, about a year ago, were fortunate enough to get a 100-room hotel in downtown Baltimore that we're operating on. As a matter of fact, Donnie and I are here at the hotel in different spaces for this show. So we want to highlight this hotel. It used to be the place where 92Q was back in the day, right? Right here, 102-110 St. Paul Street. We're on the block. So we're here. We're right across the street. And I was listening to Brother Maurice talk about his prison travails, brother, I'm gonna tell you, and Donnie and I talk about this sometime. I too am a product of bad decisions, right? I've made some bad decisions in my life, and some of those decisions have caused me to go and be a ward of the state for periods of time, right? And I can think of one particular time in 1996. I was in circuit court, part 4, in front of Judge Nancy, and I was looking at 65 years for some bad decisions that I made, right? And God blessed me to not to get the 65 years. But at that time, that wasn't evidence enough for me to stop doing what I was doing, right? So I've been blessed to stop doing what I was doing on or about November the 6th of 2000. So I'm 24 years on the other side of a self-created involuntary madness, right? So what I'm doing today, right? All the things that I'm doing today is strictly because I have a passion to help change people's lives, right? So I'm down here, man, and I shared all that to say because I can look out my window right now, right? I'm on the second floor of 102 St. Paul Street. I can look out my window right now, and I can look at the window where Judge Dancy's office was in 1996, man. And sometimes when I have a quiet moment, because we all have these, I believe, when I have a quiet moment in this room, in this office, I sit back. I'm talking about even today. I sit back. It's like that song says, when I look back over my life,
Sorry.
I ain't trying to preach, Pastor, because I know you got that. I look back at over my life, man, and I recall those moments because I can still remember the moments, discussion, the dialogue in the courtroom that day, right? I sit here by myself, man, and my eyes well up because I'm so grateful for where I am today, right? So I like what you said, Maurice. I still continue to meet, and I have responsibility right now as we speak for a whole lot of me's that are in my program, right? I have men and women in my program who are trying to change their lives, and I share with them little tidbits at a time, the struggles that I went through and the victories over those struggles, because you got to give them the hope, right? You got to give them the hope. So I make sure to give them the hope and give them a part of me, because I'm not ashamed of what I did, man. I went up in the stores and stuff and put my hand in my pocket and said, give me all the money. And that led me to go see Judge Dancy, right? And all that led me to who I am and what I am right now.
So let me just jump in here. Today, we brought in an expert. He's actually our White House correspondent for Be More News. And his column on the website is emotional intelligence. And for those that don't know, it is the ability to manage both your emotions, your own emotions, and to be able to understand the emotions of people around you. Rodney, what does that mean?
It's very simple. It's very simple. First of all, being self-aware. Being self-aware enough to know how I'm feeling, what am I doing, how am I applying it to my own self, and then using that insight to help me navigate, coordinate relationships, right? Our capability to do that is reflective of our level of emotional intelligence. But I've been following the conversation. First of all, gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to be here. I was clicking all sorts of links trying to enter the studio since 12, so I didn't see this particular one, but thank y'all for allowing me to join here. I made a note. So first of all, on the gambling piece, right? There's a really fancy word in the scientific community. It is a fancy word for the word guessing, right? And it's called a hypothesis. So when you make an educated guess, all of a sudden it's not guessing. All of a sudden you're using the scientific method, right? The skill set that it takes to be actively engaged in the world of gambling is similar to the skill set that it takes to be actively engaged and good at the world of stocks, money markets, right? So it's an informed approach to futures betting. Will this company go up? Will it go down? What impacts? Did the player have a flu? Did the horse do well? You can't control that stuff. We can't control what a company or product is going to do. It's informed guessing. But when we call it informed, all of a sudden it's scientific, right? And so a lot of times emotional intelligence is taking what we already have, who we already are, and flipping it in such a way where we're bringing out the better outcomes, right? So it's not just how do I feel? I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm mad, I'm sad. That's a good start. Because sometimes I remember I had a loved one tell me, I was a little bit younger. Vin, I'm a little embarrassed by this, Vin. Don't judge me, brother. Don't judge me for this, brother. But I was mad, right? And I felt justified about it. I was letting them know I was mad. And they said, Rodney, do you know what it's like to miss somebody? I ain't seen them in a long time. You know what it's like to miss somebody? And I'm like, what you mean? And everything that I thought was anger, Brother Marlon, was me going through the experience of missing them, but not knowing how to put that in words, not knowing how to be self-aware enough, right? And so one level of emotional intelligence is understanding what do I mean? And then how should I act in light of that? But the strength of that, right? We look at MJ. Yeah, if he had all of them MVPs, all them scoring titles, all them defensive trophies, right? But the Bulls was like 22-60 year after year after year after year, under 500 every year. He not the greatest. He not in the GOAT conversation. The GOAT status comes when we bring our team up with us, right? So I really appreciate what you guys do. I remember when 92Q was down there, Donnie, where you guys are, and it was this brother. And I don't know if this brother had a mansion across town. He looked like he didn't have a residence to me, but I didn't know the brother. But he was singing, and he was trying to get the attention of the radio folk, right? This was a long time ago. He was trying to get the attention of the folks. He's out there walking up and down, singing, man. And that's a fun. Every time I drive past there, I just think about that. Every time I gotta go to jury duty, man, I think about that, man. But I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to contributing to the conversation.
Okay, Marlon, are you recruiting any workers right now? We want to put out any opportunities you may have for your next cohort, and tell them like how much they can make, and that you do welcome women too. We don't want to forget the orders of Karen Price Ward over there at Stanley Black and Decker, your corporate partner, because she's looking for women to train and give them power tools.
Yes. So we are enrolling now. Our next cohort starts on May 28th. So we are enrolling now. You can give us a call. That phone number is 410-777-9677. Or you
come on, Marlon. Slow down, Marlon. Slow down.
Then let me give it to you again. 410-777-9677. Or you can go to our website.
Say 9311. I would have been no good.
Look, I heard that because my mother and my aunt always sing that song, and I
777-9311.
Yeah,
I know that number.
I heard it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is what they be singing." But anyway,
it's the phone number.
Or you could go to our website, power52.org. There we go. There it is. You can go to our website there. We are recruiting now men.
Who is that person on there with the fly glasses?
No.
Yes, that is Miss L'Oreal Moore. She is our junior operations manager. You can go to our website and you can also put your information there, and then we'll contact you that way as well. For men and women ages 18 to 50, we are background friendly. So it's pretty much open. And so we have job placement assistance. So after you graduate, we try to bring in our employer partners to interview our trainees. And then many of our trainees get hired by one of those companies that we are partnered with. And we start off seeing on average, we've seen them start off making between 18, 19 an hour. However, we have seen that increase lately, and they start off making between $22 or $23 an hour. So it is very lucrative, people. And many of our trainees, because of the credentials and certifications you receive from Power 52, we see that within 6 months to a year, many of our trainees are getting promoted, becoming managers, supervisors, getting raises and things like that, just because of the credentials that they have, and then getting the actual experiences. That the knowledge and the hands-on put together, we see many of our graduates, they soar when they get into the field. So, yes, sir.
Marlon, one of the things that you have to do in terms of what Rodney was talking about, can you talk about soft skills training? Because I think
Yeah.
that's a nexus when it comes to emotional intelligence. If I'm
Yes.
coming to your program, but I just did 7 years in a prison,
Mm.
my mental understanding is a little different. I'm in survival mode,
Yeah.
Yeah.
presumably. I've only done 3 days ever behind a bar. But if you are in that
Mhm.
space, you in that steel, that concrete jungle, it's about survival. It's
Right.
not all about being polite. Good morning.
Right.
How are you today? Hope you had a great evening. Hope you have a great weekend. It's survival.
Yeah.
Right.
Help me out.
Right. So one thing we do have with Power 52, we have 52 principles to power. So we call them power principles. 52 power principles.
I
So
gotta
there.
read them every day.
Yes, every other day, Monday,
Dang,
Wednesday, Friday.
gone.
And so on those is 30 minutes, and it's a 30-minute discussion on it's one of them is never let my past dictate my future.
What
Walk
does
with
that mean?
like never let my past dictate my future. For example, we had one of our out of this past cohort, he called us, and he was only 3 or 4 days out of jail, and he said, I need to come to Power 52. We got him in, and it started a month later. He was in jail for a few years. So those power principles, never letting my past dictate your future, you know, many of our graduates having come from having criminal backgrounds and things like that, sometimes they feel like that is always going to follow them. So having that understanding that, yeah, I made some mistakes, yeah, I messed up, but guess what? The future is ahead of me. I got all these different opportunities that is afforded to me, that I can't let those stigmas, I can't let those things keep me shackled in my past, and I've got to be liberated in the possibilities that we have going forward. So that's,
Let,
some.
let me ask this cat who runs this program. Vin, were you ever faced with that question about your past? Your past saying, "Oh, Vin, you can't run no drug treatment program. You was on North and Greenmount selling bus passes, getting them from people getting off at the back and selling them to people at the front. You can't you can't own no house, Vin. You can't drive no G wagon." Oh, before coming here, y'all, I didn't know what no G wagon was, but I know what one is now. Okay, so Vin, did the devil ever come up on you like, "Hey, Vin, you can't own no G wagon"?
That's right.
So uh actually he got off the screen, but brother Maurice said something a few minutes ago.
I think he's still here. I'm not sure. Maurice, you there?
Okay, he might have came back. So he said something that rings true in my ear, right? This is personal for me, but I'm more than sure that the men who are in this on this podcast today, as well as our viewers, may have this similar situation where every day I got two different sides talking to me in my own voice, right? And it's not even the large things that carry me potentially to jail. It's the small things. I'm gonna give you an example, right? Making a right on red when the sign says it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sign says no turn on red, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's 4 p.m. I don't see nobody around, and I make the right on red. Now
And
that might seem minute, but that's an example, right? It's not the measure of the decision to do right or wrong, because that's wrong, right? We're not gonna get into that's traffic law. It's wrong. I understand it's being wrong. So forget the measure. I understand clearly that at any given time, I'm subject to make a bad decision. Right now, the difference is the consequences of that decision. That's the only difference. But I understand now. Getting back to your question, right?
Did you think you'd be driving a G-Wagon when you was
Man,
over there selling bus passes?
let's get off the G-Wagon, man. But
Okay.
but to the larger question, Donnie, am I challenged with whether to continue doing what I'm doing? So for me, right, I'm sure every man here got his own motivation. I have to stay motivated, man, right, to do the things that I'm doing at the measure by which I do them. So I'm challenged often, man, with whether I should keep doing and have this thing open. I'm challenged often personally. You know what I mean? And my relationship with God, and I don't want to get, I don't want to turn this to a religious thing, even though we got a pastor on here. I have
we do cuss, Pastor. I'm just letting you know I might slip up.
I have a relationship with God, right? And I'm continuing to bolster that relationship and strengthen that relationship so I can continue to make the right decision and not make those right hand turns on red when it's saying not to. I use that as a small measure, right? Because if I'll do that, I'm subject to do something else, right? So that's the situation.
Let me shift gears. Rodney,
Yes, sir.
a parent, as a parent, do you ever have to deal with what you shoulda, coulda, woulda?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm always thinking about is, so, shout out to the pastor. You're going to keep getting some love on here, Marlon. It looked like, I often think about how heavy of the hammer should I drop when my kids go out of line versus how much do I want that same hammer or grace or mercy to drop on me for doing the same kind of thing.
My father ain't asked no question like that. When he came with that hammer, he was
hitting
everything that moved.
Right. Yeah, man. I'm trying to be a little bit more in tune. And it's funny, Marlon. It's funny that you guys have them saying these power skills?
Power principles.
Yep. Power principles, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The amazing thing about that. So right now I do some pretty high level training on emotional intelligence in federal spaces, Office of Naval Intelligence, Federal Department of Education. And there has been a shift, gentlemen. The idea of soft skills, federally speaking, is shifting over to a terminology called power skills, because they've been realizing more and more, especially given this great resignation where people are like, I ain't coming back to work nationally, right? I don't care. It don't matter. My job closed on me anyway. I figured it out. I can still make it work. People are not coming to work simply based on money and because you better in a sense of obligation. It's based on relationships. It's based on how we treat each other. Well, one of the things that have been tracking in our country, which kind of goes across the board, people get promoted based on how well they do the job. If you good at it, you get promoted. But that don't mean you're good with dealing with people, right? That don't mean that you're good at this part of it. And so one of the lowest measures of EQ, emotional IQ, right, that scale, is at the C-suite, the chief operating, this chief executive, the CEO, CO, that whole crew of C executive people, they got the lowest nationally, right? And so one of the things that helped that is this whole leaning into power principles or power skills, right? Something I was going to throw out there, Marlon, I don't know how much leverage you have to be a change agent over there at 52. I don't want Ray Lewis to come up. Hey, Maurice, remember them commercials back in the day where that big dude would come and tackle people in the office for messing up the copy machine or something? I don't want that to happen to you, Marlon. But one of the best ways to start reshaping the mind on a kind of subconscious, or another word is autonomic level, right, is hearing these kind of principles, skills, etc., affirmations, mindfulness in my own voice. In my own voice. And so when that happens, especially when I'm drowsy or when I'm sleepy or when I'm drawn or when I'm driving across, like all of those kind of things where I'm kind of acting but mindless, like I'm just kind of just going through the motions of it, that's called, not to make this too much of an egghead conversation, but that's called theta state, right? That's a brain state that we're in. It's real calm, it's real receptive, it's real creative. And if we can listen to ourselves or something positive. So a lot of times when we listen to negative stuff all day, they just fussing and cussing at the house. When I'm just going through the motions, I'm in theta state. What do I hear in my background? Good, bad, wilding out, fighting. in the neighborhood, at whatever it is, it goes into my autonomic, my subconscious. It starts shaping my person. So we can do that intentionally. Mm-hmm. This is emotional intelligence, right? This is the intentional action behind it. And so we can take them same principles, perhaps, get them to record it, bro, in their voice. Now, I don't know what kind of tech you got. I don't know if they got their phones, but if I can listen to it in my own head, in my own voice throughout the day, before I go to sleep, whatever the setup is, we begin shaping people on an individual internal level. And then that changes how I show up at the red light, man. That changes how I show up in a grocery store because I'm starting to shape it. Go ahead, Donnie.
So Maurice, how you doing? You with us?
I'm with you. I'm with you. I had to change platforms, but I'm here.
Hey, so it worked, baby. It worked.
Come on in, chime in.
So I mean, I heard so many just powerful messages. I just want to go back to the parenting piece for a minute. I have a 15-year-old son, and since my son was probably about 2, I would always say to him, "I was you before you were you." And so when he was younger, he was like, "I don't even know what that means." And I said, "Well, you will, all in due time." And I continue. So when he was in the 3rd grade as an 8th grader, when he was in the 3rd grade as a 8-year-old, and the teacher would call me, and and I'll tell him, I said, "Listen, I was 8 years old once, and I was in the 3rd grade. And these are some of the things that I experienced when I was in the 3rd grade." And I think what that has done for mine is that it has helped him to understand that he's not alone in this journey that we call life. And I think for so many young people in general, right, especially when we're dealing with adversity, we tend to believe that we're alone. We're going through this by ourselves. And that's and just keeping in the tone of mental health, right? When you feel like you're going through the storm by yourself, you're trying to figure out, how do I get through it, right? And for some people, they have faith, and they call on their faith, but then their faith get tested even more. And it's like, how do I get through this? And so I think that as a tribe, as a community, just being able to help people to understand that, listen, you're not alone. And even sharing those stories, being able to say, listen, I may not have experienced what you experienced completely, but here's part of my journey and what I've gone through. So know that I too, right? So because oftentimes we see success, right? Especially now we live in this social media age. And so folks show, the rewards, they show the fruits of the labor, but they don't show the labor. And people can get caught up in that. As an entrepreneur, I'm gonna tell you, I've seen a lot of dark days as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out how I'm gonna take these 2 pennies and turn these 2 pennies into 2 dimes, and it gets real dark, but nobody talks about that, right? They put out this message that all is gravy when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I think we do folks a disservice by not helping them to understand that, you're going to experience some dark days.
I thank you for that, because I'm writing my book now, and I'm going to take your advice when I get back home. Ben, I see you shaking your head. I'm sensing that you can relate, and then we come to you, Pastor. What got you shaking your head, Ben?
Well, it's a few things. First of all, I appreciate mine, because we never know how this show is going to go until we end it, right? Let me just say that. So I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing from each of the men on this platform today. So, man, again, we halfway through. Thank y'all for each individually of your input today. But I want to say this. I was on the phone today with one of the city administrators who make the decisions at the city level. I won't say his name. He allowed me to share this information. But don't put this up, Donnie. So I'm sure you guys remember what happened in Brooklyn over a year ago, right? So one of the things, and I don't want to make this a political show because it's not, but I'm grateful for the mayor that we have in place, because whether you know it or not, Brandon Scott is an advocate for mental health recovery. I know that for a fact, gentlemen, right? I'm not telling you what I read or what somebody told me. I've had conversations with them, right? And I'm not saying that to boast or be pretentious. Anyway. So he is having, or rather, he has put it in the arms of those who make it happen to have a day of healing in Brooklyn, July the 2nd. It's called Brooklyn Day because he understands it was a traumatic experience that happened that day. Many of the people who still live there, because we talk about a socio-economically deprived area, right? They remember, right? Some of the people that got killed, they were friends of, or they still, so those families. So man, I'm hyped about that. He knows enough, right? He's young enough to understand the mentality of the young people because he's the youngest mayor we ever had. He understands we got to do something, continue to show we support that area, and he's putting his soldiers to work at the administrative level. We're going to have a Brooklyn Day. We're going to close the street off. We're going to have vendors. New Life is going to be out there having a resource table, and so because there's a lot of young people, a lot of youth out there that saw that thing happen. They got PTSD right now from seeing that trauma and that violence that day, right? And since that day, there has not been a murder in Brooklyn from that day to right now. I need to say that on this show. Wow. Now listen. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Right so now. Pastor, come on about that trauma.
Yeah, and just to go back and recap everything, this is why we do those power principles and we have those 30-minute discussions, because we have individuals from somebody might be 18, fresh out of high school coming in the program, or we got somebody 45. Somebody who's 45, who's gone through some stuff, can educate when they speak out and say some, and it's pretty candid conversations that we have. When the 18 or 21, 22-year-old comes on there and say some pretty wild stuff, having somebody who is 45, some seasoned folk that are in the cohort with them. Exactly, an OG, somebody who's got some more life experiences, be like, no, bro, look at it this way, or can spit some more wisdom. You can, when you see the light bulb go off on that 21, 18-year-old's mind, like, that, and their whole perspective changes on never let my past take my future, or walk with integrity and stuff like that. You see how it affects their lives. Like many of them, they ask for just ask for them, and they, like, if you want to say, that becomes their Bible, if you want to say it like that.
Let me jump in here. Tell them the impact that Turbo had on the class. Y'all got to hear this. Y'all appreciate this.
Yes, his name is Turbo James. He just graduated from our cohort. He was 40. He's 45. He was in jail about 17 years. He was in jail for drug trafficking and all that. So he came in just very passionate. And he became a very vocal part of the cohort, a very, if you want to say father figure, but I wouldn't even say like father, but like a big brother just to all of them. And he advocated, and some of them felt like they didn't know what to say. He advocated, for them. He, again, gave them a lot of wisdom, because he went through a lot being in jail, all those years. And he kind of shifted and kind of helped build the culture, the family, really the tight bond family culture that that cohort really had. Him, and along with one of our other ones, we call her, she was like the mama of the group. Her name was Dee. She gave that nurturing type of feel to the cohort and brought everybody together and brought that family feel in the cohort. But it's again, and those were different age gaps. I think Dee, she was in, she might be like in her late 20s, and Turbo, he was 45. So having those different age groups and building that community, that's what grew everybody and let everybody link together, and that built the culture that they had formed in these 16 weeks that they were here with Power 52. And that's what's needed. And also, we have professional development on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you get some life skills or them power skills, and then we get like, how do you get the job? How do you keep it? And when you're in, how do you move forward in the workplace? So it's like all of those skills that's what's really the driving force behind Power 52. That's what really keeps people. They might say, yeah, we learned how to become solar panel installers, but and to help get a job, but it's those power principles, that professional development. That's what's keeping everybody together. That's what's keeping making them successful after they leave the program. So I think that's really like all of you are saying, like when you want, there's a scripture, when I want to do good, there's evil present on every hand. So it's like having those power principles, having those different discussions that we've had with the other cohort members pop up in my mind. That's what keeps them going. That's what, makes them not turn back to what they used to
Marlon,
do.
I got two questions for you, Marlon. First of all, how do the people from Baltimore get out to Columbia for the program?
Yes. So many of them, because it's
Same way they do when they going to do something, trying to do something they want to do. Same way they find a party in DC and Southeast.
yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, but they get that family bond, so they do carpool, stuff like that. But we also have transportation assistance, so we'll get them bus passes, stuff like that, to make sure they can get out here.
Got you. And then the second question is the market for solar panel installation is large enough to. It's a large enough market for that. I didn't even know there was a market big enough.
Oh yes, because solar ain't going nowhere. It's still in its infancy stage, and it's getting ready to. It's booming. It's taking over the country and globally. So this is why the credentials and stuff that they get from Power 52, you can't really get anywhere else, and they're internationally recognized credentials. We sit them for the North American Board for Certified Energy Practitioners exam. That's an internationally recognized credential. So we not only just giving you certificates, we giving you the knowledge, something to boost you, that you just and don't start as stay in an entry level position, but you might become the bosses, and we want to boss you up. We don't want you to be just the laborers. We're not training laborers. We're training the C-suiters, like you said earlier. That's what we're trying to train. And so solar is not going anywhere, and the market, it is open and booming. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's all right, man. That's all right. Maurice, what kind of entrepreneur are you, man?
I am. I mean, I've had a bakery. I was part ownership of a scrub business. I do consulting around workforce development and business coaching for executives. I've been able, thankfully to the universe, I've been able to leverage all of my life experiences from the streets to being in workforce development, nonprofit management. I lived in New York for 20 years. And when I was in New York, there was a part of a time where I was the program director for a construction training school. And so being able to deal with federal funders, state, city funders, so I've been very fortunate to leverage all of my experiences. And what brought me back to Baltimore was the riots. I saw what I saw from my home in New York, and I was like, that's not the Baltimore that I grew up in. And so a few months after, I came back to Baltimore, and I was doing some philanthropy work out of my own pocket. And then I took on a position at a local nonprofit in Baltimore, where I created a CDL training program. We were the only nonprofit organization in the state of Maryland who created a no-cost CDL training program at the time. And what I'm most proud of, over 150 people were able to get their CDLs, and we had employment waiting for them once they got the CDL. So that's always been my mindset, is to empower people past their barriers. And so I also extend myself to you, gentlemen. If there's anything that I can do to support your efforts, please don't hesitate to call on me, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to serve.
It's all right. Thank you, man. It's a powerful show, Bennett. Man, it's a powerful show, brother.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Brother Rodney, you helped to make it powerful. So thank you.
Appreciate that, man. Y'all was talking about marijuana earlier, something that comes out the White House very recently. Update is that the Department of Justice is going to scale down marijuana from being what they call a Schedule 1 to a
Mhm.
Schedule 3.
Right.
Typically, I don't like that. Let me explain why. I don't like locking people up, my people, for years and years and years and years and years, then making it okay, turn it into a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I got folks that still locked up, still got to check that box, still got to be second class. I got a problem with that, right?
And you ain't got one black dispensary in Baltimore.
Yeah. So one of the things that the administration said that is a part of what Joe Biden is trying to do with this whole rescheduling from the Department of Justice is go back, and at least on a federal level, right? Because the people that's locked up in state pens or in local, down the bookings, whatever, he can't control that. That's local. But literally pardon and release. And the words that I read was millions. So if we can either pardon, release, or expunge, at least on a federal level, millions. I don't know what that rollout is going to be. I would love for it to be flip the switch. Now for a lot of people that have been through that type of lifestyle, all of a sudden being granted full liberty to just kind of be out and about, they need supports, right?
Mhm.
They also need the structure. They need this sort of environment as well. But I hope that happens. I don't mind it being regulated. I don't mind it being taxed. One of the things when I was in the political game then, one of the things that I used to get dinged for a lot is sometimes they'd be like, you're too conservative. You're really a Republican. I'm like, what you talking about? But then I would say stuff like what I'm about to say now, which would get me in trouble. That's okay. I'm okay with a little bit of trouble sometimes. I believe that substance addiction is a public health situation and not a criminal situation. I think if somebody kicking your back door, there's already laws on the book against that. Breaking and entering, burglary, right? That's not a drug-related thing. You hit somebody in a car, whether you high, drunk, or not, you going to jail. If they died as manslaughter, homicide. So the fact that somebody's using a substance or not, I don't think that in and of itself should be a criminal sanction. So I'm okay with this whole thing with marijuana. But what was really important to me is that the people that's been negatively impacted, that had to check that box, that's looking at 8 years. My father was looking at 43 years. I ain't seen that man at that point in about 10 years. And then when I finally ran into him, he was like, yeah, man, about 2-3 years ago, he almost set me down for 40. So when you said 60 something, then I was like, whoo. So I'm glad this stuff is happening, man. I hope it happens in a way that's constructive and helpful, right? And not in a way that takes forever and really does more harm than good. Maybe
Can I just jump in real quick? Because I wanna address a situation with the court systems. And I've experienced this through helping young people, is that the young people, and not just young people, but people who go through the court system and they believe certain things that aren't true, right? So for example, I go through the courts, I plead guilty to probation before judgment, or I take a plea, and in my mind, a step, perfect example, a step, right? And so people will go and they will plead to a step, and in their minds, they believe that at the end of the year, that the step is just going to drop off. And that's not the case, right? So often
reopened at any time by any of the court officers.
Exactly. And so I think we have to, those of us who have the knowledge, have to do a better job of educating those who do not have the information, right? And so I'm often talking to young people and talking to people like, no, it doesn't just drop off. Oh, well, my public defender, my lawyer told me that, it just drop off. Expungement just happens. And I'm like, no, it never just happens. You have to go through a process.
Some things can't be expunged.
Exactly. And so, again, we have to, those of us with the information, with the knowledge, we have to start talking to those people, educating them, and because education is empowerment, right? And even if we don't have, then it's our duty to find those who do have the information and bring them into the rooms with the people who don't have the information so that people can be empowered.
Come on,
Can I
Rev.
jump in here real quick?
Okay.
I want to go back to what Brother Rodney was saying. And listen, I see all of us are old enough to know and have an understanding that America is a business, right? If we go back to the days of alcohol prohibition, the reason that alcohol was legalized was the government realized, hey, we can make money off of this thing. So they went through the mechanics that they need to go through, right, to make it legal. Same thing with marijuana. They came to the conclusion that, you know what,
We
guys,
missing money.
on the golf course, they decided, you know what, by golly, we can make millions off of this. Let's legalize it. And that's the only reason why it's going through the processes that it is today, state by state. So it's always been about the money. Unfortunately, because of this is a whole nother show. Because of what has happened to blacks through hundreds of years, we find ways and means to do what we need to do to get what we need, right? So we've always been in the situation where, from the juke joints back in Prohibition days to the weed houses now, we always trying to find a loophole because we at a place where we need to make ends meet by what Malcolm say, by whatever means necessary.
It means necessary.
So we're affected, judicially through incarceration and stuff like that. So I'm pleased that they finally came to this conclusion that they need to let my people go. But you're right, Rod. There's going to be an influx of minorities, black and brown, who are going to come out of these jails who have been in prison for single digits to double digit time for marijuana, just like they did when they finally made the change in terms of the law judicially, where crack cocaine was you got more time for crack cocaine than raw cocaine. So the white boys they got a little bit of time for large amounts. So anyway, same game, different day, right?
Yeah, man.
So blacks are always at the low end. We always behind. We always the ones who are mass incarcerated for doing the same thing that other races are doing, right? I don't want to make this a racist show, right, Donnie? So yeah.
But it is a mental health dilemma. I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to have an influx of people going to come out of jail very soon who are going to need a lot of services. They're going to need housing. They're going to need education. They're going to need re-entry back into society. Because when you've been locked up for 5 years, the world has changed.
Yeah.
Right? Stuff won't change every 2 years. 13 to 14, 14 to 15.
Right.
So bus routes change. Everything changes within the 5 years. So if you go in 5 years or more, and Mo, I know you can attest to this. Your whole life has changed, and you got to relearn a whole bunch of stuff.
That's right.
What that does is, especially for black men, that puts a fear in us in terms of, can I succeed out here in this new world? If I've been locked up 5 years or more, and the world has changed, I'm scared. I don't want to tell nobody that because I just left an environment where if you show fear, your commissary was good and getting took every week, right? So
that's right.
Yeah.
And can I jump in? So imagine you've done 5 years, but of those 5 years, you've done 3 years in solitary.
Same thing, bro.
And now someone is putting you back on the streets after you've served 36 months of your 5-year sentence in a 23.5-hour day in a cage that is smaller than your regular cage. Right. And so, because again, we're talking mental health. Right. And so now you have these folks who are now being released back into society and they don't know how to cope. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to deal.
Absolutely.
How to be around people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Come on, Marlon.
And having those conversations, it's got to be a larger conversation to the point where it's got to be deeper than surface level. Because I don't know, when y'all just talking, and I might not articulate it how I'm thinking it, but this is how we get into like the generational type of systemic type of issues that keep occurring because I guess we don't unlearn or we're not informed enough to know the different, I guess, advantages that we do have. And then we pass down those same different mindsets. So, like you were saying, if we were in solitary those 3 out of the 5 years, and I have that type of mindset, and I have a son, I'm passing that same type of mentality down to my son. Now, my son's now passing that with the people that he's around, and then he has a son, and we can create these generational issues where you don't understand why we're not overcoming certain barriers or certain stigmas in the culture and the community, but we
because
need to start having those conversations.
we're not addressing it. One thing,
Right.
Vin, and I'm just gonna put it out here, Vin. We had a conversation. You told me something you saw in prison in the shower, where cat his whole manhood is gone, but he's coming home, and he's somebody's husband, he's somebody's father, and these are examples of the trauma that all of us are surrounded by. But as black men, Reverend, you're gonna take us on home for the weekend. What's your final thought?
Okay. Oh wow. It's a lot. Y'all got me thinking.
Invite him to church. I don't know.
Right. That'll be my final thought. My final thought.
Go to church. Hebrews.
Yes, all the different stuff that we go on in our communities. We need to have some hope. We need to have some empowerment. So one, come to Power 52. That's one way to get that mental and economic empowerment, and then find some faith. Come to McKinney Memorial in Sandtown, 1340 North Calhoun Street, and let's walk through life together. Let's walk through life together, and let's see what we have to offer. Let's see where we can go together. But yes, that's my final thought.
Rodney, final thought. Briefly.
Thank you, Marlon. I'm willing to come out and be a part. And Maurice, if we want to figure out a way to collab on some projects, let's explore it, man.
How can they reach you?
Rodney C. Burris across all platforms.com, Gmail, info at. Would love to connect.
This is our White House correspondent, y'all. So y'all don't forget Rodney C. Burris. He's over there hanging out with the president. And 60 years ago today, what happened, Rodney?
60 years ago today, not Roe v. Wade, Brown versus the Board of Education, major landmark legislation came through. So we're celebrating the anniversary of that today.
Maurice, thank you for taking time. Thank you for being, for persevering. Thank you for all of the young lives, 16 to 24-year-old that you touched in Sandtown. And it was some rough characters, but many of them are leading productive lives today. Your final thought.
My final thought is just understand that depression is real. The darkness is real. Please don't assume that because a person has their own business or doing their own thing, that all is gravy. Check on them. How you feeling, brother? How you doing, sister? Because it gets really dark at times. Mm-hmm. So check on those who the perception is that they're successful and all is well, because it may not be.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You said a mouthful there. Mm-hmm. Suicide is real. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. But in our community, they saw Katrina only down in New Orleans. That we got a Katrina every day. Vin, you got the final say. This is your show. This is your world. New Life Recovery. Invite them down, Vin, to the summit. You got to tell them about the summit, Vin.
So we're pleased to announce that we're having a mental health summit, the New Life Mental Health Summit, June the 6th from 9 to 1. We're going to have 2 3-person panels. In the morning, we're going to have the tour of the facility, the 100-room hotel that I spoke of earlier. We're going to have the panels on mental health topics. We got a keynote speaker, Dr. Lawson, a professor of Howard, who's going to come and be our keynote speaker. And we just want to be able to shine a spotlight on the hotel, the program that we have in the hotel. And I don't want to elaborate because, the city just bought 2 hotels. So they're hoping to put homeless people in there and change their lives, but they don't have anything to model that after. So that's a whole nother discussion. So we're hoping to partner with Brandon Scott and those folks just to give them an idea. This is what you want to think about as you're doing this, because you just can't put somebody that's homeless in an apartment or a hotel room, because you're gonna be shocked at what they do, right? So we're grateful to be able to be down here in the downtown area, man. And if you guys are available, please come out to the summit, June the 6th.
And then congratulations on 24 years, no drugs, no alcohol.
Absolutely, brother.
No weed, no
weed.
drugs, alcohol, all that.
And no bus passes.
No bus passes. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate all of your input today. I enjoyed the show, man. It was very, very insightful. Thank you, Donnie Glover, our facilitator. Thank you for reaching out to these men. I can't wait for the next discussion.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, world.